Humanism formed the intellectual foundation of the Renaissance, placing human achievement and potential at its center. Humanist thinking centered on several core principles: human potential and dignity, revival of classical learning, a secular approach to knowledge, mastery of the arts and sciences, and recognition of individual achievement. Humanism marked a profound shift from the medieval focus on religious piety and otherworldly concerns to a celebration of human experience and a desire to master the natural world. Humanists revived interest in ancient Greek and Roman texts, seeking wisdom from classical authors and philosophers. They studied classical languages and developed a curriculum based on the liberal arts: grammar, rhetoric, poetry, history, and ethics. Key humanist figures included Desiderius Erasmus, the Dutch scholar who emphasized educational reform and religious tolerance, and Francesco Petrarch, often called the father of humanism, for his revival of classical texts. Humanism transformed European culture by balancing religious devotion with secular learning. It fostered scientific inquiry, educational reform, artistic innovation, and a new sense of individual agency and civic virtue. Renaissance art marked a revolutionary departure from medieval artistic traditions. Artists developed new techniques and approaches that fundamentally changed how people and the world were depicted in art. A defining characteristic of Renaissance art was the pursuit of realism and naturalism. Artists strived to depict people and objects with accuracy and true-to-life detail, moving away from the flat, symbolic representations of the medieval period. This focus on realistic portrayals represented a significant shift in artistic philosophy. Renaissance artists developed several innovative techniques that revolutionized visual art. Linear perspective created the illusion of depth on flat surfaces using mathematical principles. Chiaroscuro employed strong contrasts between light and shadow to achieve volume and dimension. Detailed anatomical study, as seen in Leonardo da Vinci's drawings, allowed artists to portray the human form with unprecedented accuracy. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa exemplifies Renaissance artistry. Note her subtle facial expression, achieved through careful observation. The background demonstrates atmospheric perspective, where distant elements appear bluer and less distinct. Da Vinci used his sfumato technique, the delicate blending of light and shadow, to create soft, smoky contours. Michelangelo's David demonstrates masterful anatomical knowledge. The figure stands in contrapposto, a natural, relaxed pose where weight shifts to one leg. Note how the statue's emotional intensity is conveyed through its alert posture and determined expression. This reflects the Renaissance focus on capturing both physical and psychological realism. Later Renaissance works, like Caravaggio's Judith, with the head of Holofernes, demonstrate the culmination of these artistic innovations. The dramatic lighting exemplifies advanced chiaroscuro technique, while the emotional expressions of the figures show the Renaissance concern with psychological depth. These techniques continued to influence Western art for centuries to come. These revolutionary approaches to art making fundamentally changed Western visual culture, establishing techniques and principles that would influence artists for generations to come. The printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century, revolutionized how knowledge was preserved and shared throughout Europe. Before the printing press, books were meticulously copied by hand, a process that could take months for a single volume, making books rare and expensive. Before Gutenberg's innovation, manuscripts were painstakingly produced by hand. Each book required months of labor by skilled scribes, making them expensive luxuries available primarily to the wealthy and the clergy. Gutenberg's press used movable metal-type pieces that could be arranged to form text. Ink was applied to these raised letters, and paper was pressed against them. The key innovation was that once the type was set, multiple copies could be printed with relatively little additional effort. Printing workshops soon spread across Europe. These busy establishments featured multiple skilled workers handling different aspects of the printing process, from typesetting to operating the press and binding the finished books. The impact on book production was dramatic. Within decades, millions of books were circulating in Europe. By 1500, just 50 years after Gutenberg's invention, an estimated 20 million volumes had been printed, more than all the books produced by European scribes in the previous 1,000 years. Gutenberg's most famous work was his Bible, completed around 1455. It represented a milestone in printing technology, with beautiful typography and illustrations that rivaled handwritten manuscripts. Yet it could be produced much faster and in larger quantities. Perhaps the most profound impact of the printing press was how it democratized access to knowledge. As books became more affordable, literacy rates increased. Information was no longer monopolized by the elite. Ideas could spread quickly across geographic boundaries. The printing press fueled the scientific revolution by allowing discoveries to be shared widely. It enabled religious reformation as translations of sacred texts became widely available. It also standardized languages and created entirely new professions. The printing press has been called one of the most influential inventions of the Renaissance, comparable in impact to the Internet in our modern era. It transformed society by making the accumulated knowledge of humanity accessible to ordinary people for the first time. The printing press created a foundation for modern society by enabling mass communication and the widespread exchange of ideas that characterized both the Renaissance and subsequent intellectual movements. These extraordinary individuals embodied the Renaissance ideal of versatility and excellence across multiple disciplines. Leonardo da Vinci, perhaps the most celebrated Renaissance figure, embodied the period's ideals through his extraordinary versatility. As a painter, he created masterpieces like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. His scientific studies of human anatomy were revolutionary. Leonardo's inventions included flying machines like this aerial screw, a precursor to the helicopter, and numerous war devices. Michelangelo Buonarroti excelled in multiple artistic domains, becoming one of the most influential figures of the High Renaissance. As a sculptor, he created the Magnificent David and the poignant Pietà. His painting of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, shown here, took 4 years to complete and features over 300 figures. Michelangelo also worked as an architect on St. Peter's Basilica and wrote hundreds of poems. Raphael Sanzio, though he lived only 37 years, left an extraordinary legacy as a painter and architect of the High Renaissance. His most famous work, The School of Athens, perfectly captures Renaissance ideals by depicting ancient philosophers in a classical setting. This fresco demonstrates Raphael's mastery of perspective and composition. Like Michelangelo, he also worked on the design of St. Peter's Basilica. Donatello, an early Renaissance master, revolutionized sculpture by reviving classical techniques and introducing new innovations. He created the first freestanding bronze figure since ancient times and pioneered realistic human expressions in sculpture. His bronze David, shown here, was revolutionary in its naturalistic form and became an icon of Renaissance art that influenced all subsequent sculptors. These Renaissance titans embodied the humanist ideal of versatile excellence. They mastered multiple disciplines, drawing inspiration from classical antiquity while creating new techniques and perspectives. Their work celebrated human potential and beauty, defining what we now call Renaissance genius. The Medici family of Florence were the most influential patrons of art in Renaissance Italy. Through their vast banking empire, they accumulated tremendous wealth and constructed magnificent palaces in Florence, like the Palazzo Medici Riccardi shown here. Two key figures stand out in the family's history of art's patronage. Cosimo de' Medici, the patriarch, established the family's tradition of supporting artists. His grandson, Lorenzo the Magnificent, elevated patronage to new heights, supporting artists like Botticelli, Michelangelo, and Leonardo da Vinci. The Medici supported a remarkable array of talented artists, helping to establish Florence as the cradle of Renaissance art. The Renaissance patronage system was essential for artists' careers. Wealthy patrons like the Medici would commission specific works and provide financial support, materials, and even housing. The Medici's patronage transformed Florence into the cultural heart of the Renaissance. They funded magnificent buildings, public art, libraries, and supported humanist scholars. The Medici commissioned some of the most iconic works of the Renaissance. They funded Michelangelo's sculptures, Botticelli's masterpieces, and architectural marvels like Brunelleschi's dome. The Medici amassed one of history's greatest art collections. Much of their collection now forms the core of Florence's Uffizi Gallery, one of the world's most important art museums. The legacy of Medici patronage extends far beyond Renaissance Florence. They established the model for modern arts patronage and created an environment where artistic genius could flourish. Without the Medici family's generous support and vision, the Renaissance as we know it might never have blossomed in such extraordinary ways. Renaissance architecture marked a dramatic return to the principles of classical antiquity. Architects rediscovered and studied ancient Greek and Roman buildings, incorporating classical elements into their designs. They applied mathematical principles and geometric ratios to achieve perfect harmony and proportion, as seen in this analysis of classical forms. Mathematical principles were central to Renaissance architecture. Buildings were designed using careful calculations and proportions. Rudolf Wittauer's influential book explored how Renaissance architects applied humanist principles to their designs, creating structures that reflected the divine order of the universe. Perhaps the most remarkable architectural achievement of the Renaissance was Filippo Brunelleschi's dome for Florence Cathedral. Completed in 1436, this engineering marvel was built without traditional scaffolding and used an innovative double-shell design with a herringbone brick pattern. Andrea Palladio was another architect whose work embodied Renaissance ideals. His Villa Rotonda, completed around 1571, represents perfect architectural harmony. With its perfect symmetry, central dome, and classical porticos facing in 4 directions, the villa harmonizes with the surrounding landscape while demonstrating ideal mathematical proportions. Renaissance architectural principles also transformed urban planning, creating harmonious civic spaces and street layouts. Architects like Brunelleschi designed buildings like the Ospedale degli Innocenti that established rhythmic patterns in urban spaces, creating visually unified environments. How do the ideals of the Renaissance continue to shape our world today? The Renaissance introduced ideals that continue to shape our modern society. These include humanism, which places human potential at the center of our worldview; individualism, which celebrates personal achievement and creativity; and the endless pursuit of knowledge across disciplines. The parallels between the Renaissance and our modern era are striking. Just as the printing press revolutionized information sharing then, digital technology has transformed how we access knowledge today. Renaissance workshops have evolved into our modern innovation hubs and startups, while traditional patronage has given way to crowdfunding and venture capital. Some experts suggest we are entering what could be called a new Renaissance, a rebirth focused on human purpose and values in the face of rapid technological change. This movement emphasizes balancing technological progress with humanistic values and developing uniquely human skills like creativity and critical thinking in an age of increasing automation. The Renaissance's educational and artistic legacies remain particularly vibrant today. Our modern liberal arts education model, with its emphasis on interdisciplinary learning and critical thinking, is directly descended from Renaissance educational ideals. In the arts, we continue to see Renaissance influence in ongoing artistic innovation, reinterpretations of classical works, and exploration of new media and techniques, just as Renaissance artists pioneered new approaches in their time. The Renaissance ideals of humanism, individualism, and the pursuit of knowledge transcend their historical period, continuing to resonate in our modern world. The pursuit of excellence across disciplines, the blending of tradition with innovation, and the ongoing dialogue between past and present are all Renaissance values that remain as relevant today as they were 5 centuries ago. In many ways, the Renaissance never ended. Its spirit of inquiry and creativity continues to inspire and guide us as we face the challenges and opportunities of our own transformative era. The Renaissance period continues to provoke debate among historians and scholars. While traditionally viewed as a distinct break from the Middle Ages, this timeline shows how the Renaissance emerged gradually from preceding periods. Some historians emphasize continuities between the Middle Ages and Renaissance, while others view it as a distinct break from the past. This debate centers on how we interpret cultural, artistic, and intellectual developments. Academic focus has shifted in recent decades. Renaissance studies increasingly consider global connections, diverse voices, and interdisciplinary approaches that challenge traditional Eurocentric narratives. Renaissance events and achievements can be interpreted in multiple ways. These diverse perspectives enrich our understanding, revealing the complexity of this pivotal period in history. We encourage you to explore the Renaissance further and form your own informed opinions. Examine primary sources, consider multiple viewpoints, and appreciate the nuanced complexity of this fascinating historical period.